Hello, this is Brad Malone with Joel Harris. This is another episode of our ClearTalk. We've been talking in the last several, Joel, about moving a company from 6 million to 10 to 12 to 15 to 18 to 20 to 30. When that owner starts to move away from that firefighter role and that reactionary problem solver that everybody needs, what do they fill their time to, one, add value, but two, feel needed?
That's a great question. And so we're going to talk about several things today. The first thing we have to recognize is that having expectations of what other people are going to do that aren't clearly written out and agreed upon by those those executive team is a recipe for disaster, right? So sometimes owners kind of think, well, anybody could do this, and I'm just going to step back and they're going to step up.
Right.
Well, that's good because you can't elevate unless you delegate. So the first thing to understand is that for you to successfully move out of that role of doing, you have to have clear agreements with your team as to what they're picking up. This is a conversation, and this is training, and this is over time. Because if you just suddenly step out of the picture, I promise you, you will get the bad results that you thought might happen, and that is that people will fail. Now, if you want to feel real needed, then let that happen, and you'll be right back in the middle of it. But if you're intent on building a business for success, then you have to elevate. And we'll talk a little bit about what do you elevate to. But first, let's talk about the delegation part of it. And that to me is setting clear agreements. What exactly are your people going to do? And what are your expectations of them in writing so they know whether they're succeeding or not. The second question that occurs to it needs to be answered is what are you elevating to? And this is where typically we would suggest that you're elevating to the role of owner, not operator. So what are the key metrics that you as an owner of a business are not going to abdicate to your team? What are the key decisions that only you make? And so now you have to kind of maybe think a little bureaucratic, but what exactly are the decisions that you're going to withhold final approval on? Hiring, promotions, pay, liabilities that you're incurring with your vendors and with your bank. What are those specific items that you're not going to abdicate to people, but they actually have to come and have a discussion with you on for that? So there's the expectations around the role and how people perform, and then there's the written agreements around control of specific functions and that you might need to do. And so then the third thing we're going to say is don't abdicate, right? You still own the business. You are still ultimately responsible for the performance of the business. So while you are growing and by necessity having to elevate your role, the third advice is, but don't abdicate. And so as Ronald Reagan famously said many, many years ago, trust but verify. And this is the role that you're now taking on, is making sure that you're looking for the growth of the company. So you're now involved in strategic decisions and customer relationships, and you're driving ahead of what your team's actually performance. That's how you fill your time. That's what you're focused on.
Cool. I think also, you did the elevate to delegate. As the owner elevates their role, they're elevating the rest of the table.
That's right.
And I'm going to say they don't know how to delegate either, because that's what kept them at that tier at the table. So it's like Amazon, the only way you get a new job is to work yourself out of your old job. So
critical, right?
I think that's definitely training.
So you have to train people not only to elevate into their role, but how do they get rid of some of the work that they've been doing? Because they also want to feel needed and busy and all these nasty words that don't really lead to effectiveness of the organization. And so they also have to, so you're right, it's a two-stage system, because just asking somebody to take on more responsibilities, not probably going to be all that successful.
Well, and it's not going to happen overnight. It takes a concerted effort. I mean, to me, it's a year program just to get into the mental model of, oh, I need to start making these decisions. I'm a salesperson or sales manager. I need to deal with risk before I just say, hey, boss, this is too risky. What do you think? It's like, no, this is too risky. What I'd rather not do this. So it's really elevating that mindset, which again takes time because these are all new habits, new thoughts. I think it's the commitment of companies to begin the journey that's important. I think people tend to think of it as well, we're going to do it this month.
Right? But it's not a switch.
No,
So
it's a
let's talk
habit.
a little bit about that. I know you have some experiences with owners who have tried to do this and frankly, let's be honest, failed at it. What are
Yep.
some things you've seen that have caused these failures by well-meaning people all trying to do the right thing?
Well, I think it's that silo-based mentality is that the owner had two or three people and then five or six around the table. And it's kind of like what you have for lunch meetings. And, finance, how we doing? Sales, how we doing? Ops, how we doing? Procurement, how we doing? And they kind of report out. And a lot of times in those meetings from an immature company, it's just how do we get through the meeting without any hard questions being asked?
Right?
And so it's like, and I'm presenting so I know that everybody will nod. But that's not where companies fail. Companies fail in the handoffs. So I think it's understanding, and we've done several sessions on metrics. What are the lead and the lag metrics cross-departmental? So when I look at operations, is sales owning how well they're estimating? Or is sales blaming ops for just being over on projects? So it's that owner getting the linkages between the two so that I don't have to be there. Because I think oftentimes the owner fills the mental gaps between the silos. And as I'll say on projects, projects don't fail in the activities, they fail in the interdependencies. And so really getting the metrics lined up to understand that every silo metric, in order to get over to the other, again, sales to ops, I've got to have contingency plans. I've got to have an estimate in there. We have to have good kickoff meetings. So it's rewarding the cross-functional behavior versus superstars in their silo. And I think
I think
that,
this is,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I
go
think
ahead.
you really remind me of Patrick Leone's work where we
Yeah,
talk about, are you on team one or team two? And we're beginning to change those team dynamics where the owner is no longer responsible for those silos. Everybody goes to them for a group decision that's
right.
executed by the silo. But instead, we're teaching the team to look to their peers and say,
Right.
I need help from you, or I need you to do this, not run to papa or mama and get you in trouble, but instead working out their leadership issues as a peer group, as opposed to trying to figure out who gets the right answer on these things. That's
Exactly. Again,
a
it's
great
going to
observation.
teacher. Yep. And I think a key perspective of that is making sure that there's a visible swim lane chart
Yeah,
that's cross-functional in nature, left to right, from marketing all the way through service, quote to cash.
right.
And that owner kind of row, we want to make that, I won't say go away, but become invisible.
Mhm.
So again, how do we manage maturely without the quote parents in the room? And that's key. And when the management team starts to own that, then they start to play because it's like the answer's in the room, but we got to work together to do it.
I think this is a great conversation on how you bust that glass ceiling of being held back into a $20 million company. Because this is my observation. This is that 15 to $20 million company that just can't get
Right.
above that. So if you're operating in that zone and you're wondering how do you get above it, this conversation is for you.
Well, and we'll just close with it takes courage. There's going to be mistakes. It takes forgiveness. It takes risks. And I think that a lot of people just want to somehow morph into that bigger
Right?
company without doing the hard work of courage, risk, learning, vulnerability. It's taken on a whole new conversation. But so thanks, Joe. I mean, I always enjoy these conversations with you, but more importantly, with the companies that are really excited to grow.
That's the goal, right? We want to help everyone run a better business, and better business starts with a growth mindset. So let's go make it happen.
Absolutely.